Okay, this is what you should have gotten for 3 through 5. As you can see here, it's pretty easy to match these up here. You could have done the math and plugged in points that you found on the graph, like for example on this one. If I'm looking at the graph, it looks like if you plug in 1, you see how on the graph in your book, if you plugged in 1 for x, you would get 8 as your answer, and that's kind of a cross section that you can see on letter B. So that's one way that you could have solved these, is by just plugging in points that you saw on there. However, the main thing that you're supposed to recognize is that this number is greater than this number right here. So of course, this is going to go up faster, right? We're going to have higher values in the y value faster. And so that's what you should have noticed for B. And for A, it's going to go down, it's going to go up slower. So that's why it's down low like this. And then for C, you should have noticed that it's upside down. Being upside down means you're only in the negative values, right? So that's one quick way you could have noticed what the answers would have been, right? But let's go ahead and move on to numbers 6 through 8. So we're going to do that, and then we're going to describe the domain that we see, okay? I know you're probably tired of graphing, but it's super important to understand the graphing before we move on to the next lesson. So looking at this one, we're going to create a table, x, y, and then we do the same thing as we've been doing for the rest of these. Plug in a value that's going to give you a square root of 0. So the value that's going to give you square root of 0 here is if I plug in 0 for x. Plug in 0 for x, and you get square root of 0. Square root of 0 is 0 times 3 is 0. Okay? Then you plug in the next value, 1. And the way that you tell which direction you go, like we've been saying before, is you just check. Do I want to go towards the negatives, or do I want to go towards the positives? So I want to go towards the positives here, and then you should get these values. So I'm just going to fill these in. Square root of 2 is 1.4. Ooh, I might have to start using my calculator for this. So I'm going to do it just like this. Square root of 2 equals times 3. So I get something that looks like this. So it's about 4.2. Okay? Make sure you stay in your calculator as long as possible before rounding an answer. So next value is 3, so I'm going to do square root of 3, press enter, and then times 3. So 5.2. About 5.2. Okay? Next one I don't need my calculator for. Plugging in 4, I get square root of 4 is 2. 2 times 3 is 6. Okay? Now I'm going to graph this. I notice that all my values are positive, so when I make a table for this, I'm really not going to include a whole lot of negative numbers. Okay? All right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's how many I needed. And over this way, I need to go up to 4. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and then I always like to add an extra one just for good measure. Okay? Now I plot this. 0, 0, 1, 3, 2, 4.2. It's going to be about here. 3, 5.2. About here. And then 4, 6. Okay? So I've got 0, 0. My graph kind of looks funny. Shouldn't look exactly like that. It should be a lot more of a straight curve. But as you can see, my values were a little bit off. Like, this is a lot smaller of a gap than this gap. So that's why I got kind of a weird graph here. But as long as if you kind of get the shape, you're doing it right. Okay. what are all the oh wait, for these ones we don't have to worry about the range, sorry. So what are all the possible x values? Well, for this one it's actually pretty easy to see. We don't even need to look at these values right here or even look at the graph. You can just look and ask yourself, what are all the possible x values I can plug in? Well, I can plug in 0, and I can plug in anything greater than 0. As soon as I plug in a negative number, it's not going to work. So that's my answer for 6. So note that number 6, you didn't have to describe the range. All right, let's go ahead and move on to number 7. Number 7, y equals 7 square root x, okay? X, y. This is kind of the same story, right? You know you're going to start at 0. You're going to go up from there. 0, 7. Now I got to use my calculator for this because I've got square root of 2 times 7, 9.9. Okay, same thing here. Square root of 3, press enter, times 7, 12.1. Okay, and then I don't need my calculator for the next one. Answer is 14. Okay, let's graph this. We need lots of room in the positive. Don't need any room in the negative. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Ooh. And you go up a little bit more. 7. That way I can include 14 in my answer. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 at the very top. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's all I need, so I won't go any further. Okay, let's plot this. 0, 0, 1, 7, 2, 4, 6, 7 right here. 1, 7, 2, 9.9. It's going to be basically touching that line right there. And then 3, 12.1. Going to be about there. And then 4, 14. Okay. It's going to look something like this. That one looks kind of crazy. It goes up pretty fast. These kind of look like shooting stars. Okay. That was a weird thought. So let's look at all the possible x values. We can start at 0. And then we look at every value greater than 0. Okay. That's 7. Let's do 8. Number 8. Y equals negative 0.5 square root x. This is all going to kind of be the same type of problem over and over again. Really good to get practice so you fully understand this. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Same type of problem. 0, negative 0.5. All right, gotta pull out my calculator for these two. Square root of 2 equals times negative 0.5. So I got negative 0.7. I'll put dashes through these zeros. Okay. And then next we got square root 3 times negative 0.5, negative 0.9. So negative 0.9. And then finally, I don't need to solve this one on the calculator. Square root of 4 is 2. 2 times negative 0.5 is negative 1. Okay. This time I need more values in the negatives, and I actually didn't need to make my graph this big, because I'm not going very far. I'm going to give myself lots of space so I can really see what's happening here. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. 0, 0. 1, negative 0.5. 2, negative 0.7. 3, negative 0.9. 4, negative 1. Okay, this one's a lot shorter. All right, domain for this one is x is greater than or equal to 0. You kind of already figure out your domain when you're filling in this side, right? You can see all the domains are the same because all of our left sides of the table are the same, and they all work. Okay. I'll come back with a second video for the next problems, 9 through 14. Okay, so go ahead and get started on those, and we'll come back together and solve those.